I overheard my husband on the phone saying, "Once she signs, we're set for life." I walked into the kitchen where the papers were waiting. He smiled nervously. "Honey, just a formality for our future." I picked up the pen, smiled back, and signed. The next morning, a lawyer knocked on our door, and my husband's face went completely white. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment from which part of the world you are watching. Get comfortable and relax, let's begin. The knock on the front door was firm, 3 precise raps that echoed through the foyer. I watched from the kitchen archway as Marcus crossed the marble floor, his posture relaxed, expecting a delivery. He opened the door and his confident smile dissolved. His face, tanned from Saturday golf, turned a pale, sickly gray. The woman on the doorstep held a leather folio, not a package. She asked for him by his full name. I took a slow sip of my tea, the porcelain cup warm against my palm. The liquid was the perfect temperature. I had known she would arrive at 10 a.m. I had been waiting. 24 hours earlier, I had believed that kitchen was the heart of a shared life. The morning sun streamed through the bay window, illuminating the quartz countertops we chose together. I was refilling the ceramic canister with coffee beans, the rich aroma filling the air. Marcus was on the patio, his voice a low murmur through the glass door he'd left slightly ajar. He thought I was upstairs. I heard the tension in his laugh, a strained sound I'd lately attributed to work stress. "Relax," he said into his phone. "It's just a signature. A formality." A pause. I stopped pouring, my hand hovering over the canister. His next words were clear, each one a distinct shard of ice. "Once she signs, we're set for life. The house, the investments, everything's structured. She'll get the retirement account, which is basically dust. She'll never know." The silence in my head was absolute. The hum of the refrigerator faded. I saw my reflection in the stainless steel toaster, a woman in her favorite linen robe, frozen. She, set for life, dust. The words did not compute at first. They floated, absurd and hostile, in the space between the potted herb garden on the windowsill and the fruit bowl he always kept perfectly stocked for appearances. I heard the patio chair scrape. I moved then, a silent pivot to the sink, turning on the tap to rinse my already clean cup. He walked in, the picture of casual ease, sliding his phone into his pocket. His smile was wide, but it was the one that didn't reach his eyes. It hadn't for months, I realized. I had called it preoccupation. I had made excuses. "Morning, sunshine," he said, coming to kiss my cheek. I turned my face slightly so his lips grazed my jaw. I focused on the feel of the cold water on my fingers. "You're up early for a Sunday," I said. My voice was normal. It was a marvel. "Client call. Overseas," he said, reaching for the orange juice. The lie was smooth, effortless. "Hey, those papers from the financial guy came in. Remember the estate planning thing we talked about? He needs them back tomorrow. Should be on my desk." We had talked about it, vaguely. He'd framed it as a tedious but necessary update to our beneficiary documents, a chore to get out of the way. I had agreed, trusting him to handle the details as he always did with finances. That trust was now a physical object, broken and sharp in my throat. "I'll sign them today," I said, turning off the water. I dried my hands on a towel, examining the linen for lint. "Where's the pen?" He looked pleased, a flash of genuine emotion that made my stomach clench. "Great, I'll get them." He returned with a slim document, maybe 10 pages, paper-clipped together. He placed it on the breakfast table with a flourish and produced a heavy fountain pen, his monogrammed one, a prop for a serious transaction. "Just the flagged tabs," he said, his tone light. "Page 3, 7, and the last page." I sat. I pulled the document toward me. The first page was a cover letter from a firm I didn't recognize. Legal jargon bloomed in dense paragraphs. My eyes scanned, not reading, just tracing shapes. I turned to page 3. A yellow sticky arrow pointed to a signature line. Next to it, my printed name, Serena Marie Evans. I looked up at him. He was watching me, his head slightly tilted, the nervous smile playing on his lips. His tell. I had always found it endearing, a sign of his boyish anxiety. Now I saw it for what it was, a crack in the performance. "It's all standard?" I asked, lifting the pen. "Totally standard. Just make sure everything goes smoothly for the future." He almost said, "for me." I heard the unspoken words. I uncapped the pen. The weight of it was familiar. He had given it to me on our 10th anniversary. "For all the contracts you'll never have to worry about," he'd said. I placed the nib on the paper. My signature is a flowing thing, a practiced S with a long, confident tail. I signed Serena M. Evans on page 3. The ink was dark blue, permanent. I turned to page 7, signed again. The last page had 2 lines, one for him, one for me. His was already there, bold and slashing. I signed below. The act took less than 15 seconds. I recapped the pen with a soft click. All done. He exhaled, a sound he tried to mask as a sigh of relief at completed paperwork, but it was the exhale of a man crossing a finish line. "Perfect. I'll messenger these over first thing tomorrow." He took the document, his fingers careful not to smudge the wet ink. He did not look at me. He walked back to his study, already pulling out his phone, his stride buoyant. I remained at the table. The sun had moved, now warming the back of my neck. I looked around my kitchen. Our kitchen. The custom cabinetry, the professional range, the artisanal tile backsplash, a life built, a stage set. I felt a cold, clean clarity wash through me, numbing the initial shock, freezing the rising panic. The pain was there, a vast, dark ocean waiting beneath the ice, but I would not fall into it yet. He believed I had just secured his future. He believed I was oblivious, the trusting wife, the passive partner. He believed the game was over, and he had won. He was wrong. The game had just begun, and he did not yet know he was no longer a player, but the mark. I stood up, cleared my cup and his juice glass, and washed them both by hand. I studied the water swirling down the drain. Then I went upstairs, dressed in real clothes, and made a list. The first item was a name, Eleanor Jones. The second was a task, find a lawyer, a real one. The knock on the door the next morning was simply the first move in my counter game. Watching his face drain of color was the first small, quiet proof that my plan was already in motion. I finished my tea. The taste was bitter, and I appreciated it. It kept me sharp. I set the cup down on the saucer without a sound and waited for him to turn around, to look at me, to see the woman he thought he had erased already staring back, utterly unchanged and completely in control. He turned from the door, the legal papers clutched in his hand, his expression a mask of bewildered fury. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice too loud for the quiet foyer. I placed the teacup on its saucer. "I believe it's a summons, or a notice of motion. I'm not entirely sure of the terminology." I walked past him to the hall closet, took out my lightweight jacket. "Serena, what did you do?" The confusion in his tone was almost convincing. "I retained counsel," I said, sliding my arms into the sleeves. "After I signed your papers yesterday, it seemed the prudent next step. To have my own lawyer review everything. Standard practice, I'm told." His jaw worked. The color was returning to his face in blotchy red patches. "This is a mistake. There's no need for this. Those documents were straightforward." "Then you have nothing to worry about," I said, my tone neutral. I picked up my purse and keys from the console table. "Gail Preston seems very thorough. I'm sure it will all be cleared up quickly." Using her name was a calculated risk, but I wanted to see his reaction. A flicker in his eyes, a minute tightening around his mouth. He knew the name. He knew what it meant. "Where are you going?" he asked, the demand shifting to a note of attempted control. "To see Nori. We have a standing Sunday brunch." This was true. He had forgotten, as he forgot most things that centered on me. "I'll be back this afternoon." I did not wait for his reply. I closed the front door behind me, the click of the latch a definitive sound. The spring air was cool and clean. I took 3 deep breaths, filling my lungs before I got into my car. My hands were steady on the wheel. Eleanor Jones lived 20 minutes away, in a neighborhood of older, well-kept bungalows. Her front yard was a riot of early blooms, crocuses, daffodils, hellebores, a testament to the gardening advice I'd given her over the years. The order within was a contrast to the joyful chaos outside. Every book had its place, every photograph was aligned. The smell was of lemon polish and the faint, dry scent of paper. Nori took one look at me as she opened the door. Her sharp eyes, behind stylish glasses, missed nothing. She did not ask if I was all right. She said, "The kettle's just boiled. Chamomile or peppermint?" "Peppermint, please." I followed her to the sun-filled sitting room. I did not cry. I sat on her well-worn chintz sofa and told her everything, in order with the dispassionate detail of a police report. The overheard conversation, the specific phrases, the signing of the papers, the lawyer's visit this morning. Nori listened without interruption, her hands folded in her lap. When I finished, she nodded once. So, he's moved from emotional neglect to financial treachery. I wondered when the pivot would come. Her calm assessment was a balm. It framed his actions not as a personal cataclysm, but as a predictable behavioral pattern. "You're not surprised," I stated. "I am surprised by the bluntness of it. I expected more finesse from him. A longer con." She got up to fetch the tea. "He's gotten arrogant or desperate." She returned with a tray. "This Gail Preston, she's the one who handled the Clayton's estate dispute?" "Yes. You recommended her name to me years ago, remember? Said she was a pit bull in a Chanel suit." "I did." "Good. You've already made the smartest move." She poured the tea. "Now, you will not spend a single second more than necessary mourning that man. What you will do is think. What did you sign?" I took the cup she offered. "I don't know. Not precisely. It was titled as an estate planning update." He pointed to 3 signature lines. "I signed them all." "Did you keep a copy?" "No." He took the document immediately. "Of course he did." Nori sipped her tea. "But you have a mind, Serena. You were in that kitchen. What did you see before you signed? A letterhead, a logo, any names?" I closed my eyes. I called back the image of the first page. The memory was photographic, a skill honed from years of studying plant catalogs and design schematics. The letterhead was from Bryant and Associates. The address was in the city. The top of the page had a reference number, CEV-4482. Nori was already reaching for a notepad and pen from the side table. She wrote it down. "Good. And the other pages? Any headers? Section titles?" I scanned the memory. Page 3 had a title in the footer. Exhibit A, Quitclaim Deed. I didn't process it then. The term quitclaim now rang a cold, clear bell. It meant the relinquishment of a property right. Nori's pen paused. "I see. And the other signature pages?" Page 7. The footer said Exhibit B, Transfer of Interest, SE Holdings, LLC. The last page was simply Joint Revocable Trust, Amendment and Restatement. Nori set her pen down. She looked at me, her expression grave but not pitying. "He wasn't just hiding assets, Serena. He was having you sign them away, the house, your stake in what I assume is a shared investment vehicle, and restructuring a trust to his sole benefit." She let out a long breath. "It's not just greedy. It's vile." There was a strange relief in hearing the shape of the trap. Knowing its dimensions made it less terrifying. It was a problem with components, legal, financial, personal. Problems could be solved. What do I do? You have already started. You have a lawyer. You've just provided her with her first leads. Now you go home and you behave exactly as you did this morning. You are calm. You are confused by this legal nonsense. You are the wronged, trusting wife. She leaned forward. But you are not. You are a gatherer of information. You will listen. You will observe. You will find that copy of the document, or you will find other documents. You will not confront him. You will feed him the performance he expects, while you and Gail Preston build the case that will dismantle his. I felt it then, a shift inside me. The cold numbness crystallized into a solid, stable structure, a plan, a purpose. I can do that. I know you can. She allowed herself a small, tight smile. He sees the landscape designer. He sees the wife. He has never seen the strategist. Use that. I stayed for another hour. We did not speak of Marcus again. We talked about her rose bushes, about a new biography she was reading. The normalcy was an anchor. When I left, she hugged me, a firm, brief embrace. Remember, she said softly at the door, you are not alone in this. The drive home was quiet. I re-entered the house with a relaxed posture, a slight, weary sigh. Marcus was in his study, the door closed. I went to the kitchen and began preparing a meal, the familiar rhythms of chopping and seasoning a form of meditation. He emerged later, his demeanor cautious, testing. How was Nori? He asked. The same. We talked about her garden. The aphids are back. I stirred the pot on the stove. What did the lawyer say? He leaned against the doorway, affecting nonchalance. A misunderstanding, an overzealous associate. Gail Preston has a reputation for being aggressive. She's probably just drumming up business. That's a relief, I said, not looking at him. It sounded so serious. It's nothing. I'll handle it. He came closer, his voice softening into the tone he used when he wanted something. You know I'd never let anything hurt us, right? I'm protecting our future. I turned and gave him the smile that didn't reach my eyes. It was easy. I had learned from the best. I know, Marcus, I trust you. He believed it. I saw the tension leave his shoulders. He kissed my forehead before wandering back to his study, his step light once more. I turned back to the stove. The sauce simmered, small bubbles rising and breaking at the surface. I watched them form and vanish. The first phase was complete. The deception was mutual now. The next phase began tonight. I would find what he had hidden. I had the first keys, Bryant and Associates, CEV 4482, SE Holdings. The hunt was on, and he did not know he was being hunted. The meeting with attorney Gail Preston was scheduled for Monday at 2 p.m. I spent the intervening hours in a state of suspended animation. I performed my routines. I answered client emails about garden plans. I greeted Marcus in the morning as he left for work, noting the careful, evaluating look he gave me. I smiled back, vague and untroubled. The performance was everything. Gail Preston's offices were in a sleek downtown building of glass and steel. The reception area was quiet, decorated in muted grays and blues. A woman behind a minimalist desk directed me to a corner office with a view of the river. Gail stood as I entered. She was as Nori had described, elegant, formidable in her 50s, wearing a tailored suit the color of charcoal. Her handshake was firm and brief. Serena Evans, please sit. Her voice was low, clear, devoid of unnecessary warmth. It was a voice for stating facts. I sat in a chair opposite her desk, which held nothing but a computer, a legal pad, and a single pen. No clutter, no distraction. Eleanor Jones speaks highly of you, I began. A slight nod. The feeling is mutual. She said you had a situation requiring immediate and discreet attention. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. Tell me why you're here. I did not start with the emotion. I started with the timeline. I presented the facts as I had for Nori, but with more precision. The date and approximate time of the overheard conversation. The exact phrasing as I recalled it. The appearance of the documents. The names, Bryant and Associates, CEV 4482. The footer titles, Quit Claim Deed, Transfer of Interest for SE Holdings, LLC, Joint Trust Amendment, my signing. The process server the next morning. I handed her a single sheet of paper where I had typed these bullet points. She took it, her eyes scanning the lines quickly. She did not interrupt. When I finished, she placed the paper neatly on her desk. "You did not keep a copy of the document you signed." "No," he took it immediately. "Do you have access to shared filing cabinets, a home safe, a digital cloud storage you both use?" "A filing cabinet in his study, a fireproof safe in the closet of that room. I know the combination to the safe. It's our anniversary date." The irony was not lost on me. "Good." She made a note. "The law firm you mentioned, Bryant and Associates, they are not estate planners. They are a boutique firm known for aggressive asset protection and high net worth divorce strategies." She let that statement hang in the air. "The reference number you saw is likely a client matter number. CEV probably stands for Evans Client. The fact that you were presented with documents from this firm for an estate planning update is the first red flag." She turned to her computer, her fingers typing swiftly. "We will, of course, send a formal request for a copy of all documents you signed, but we will not wait for their reply. You will attempt to locate a copy in the home tonight. Photograph every page. Do not remove it. We need to establish what you were fraudulently induced to sign." Fraudulently induced. If he misrepresented the nature and consequence of the documents, it constitutes fraud in the execution. It renders them voidable. She spoke plainly, as if explaining a mechanical process. "A quitclaim deed, if that's what this is, would transfer your interest in the marital home to him alone. SE Holdings, LLC. Do you know what that is?" I felt a cold trickle of recognition. My initials, Serena Evans. He set up an investment vehicle a few years ago. He said it was for tax efficiency, that I didn't need to worry about it. "And you are listed as a member?" "I believe so. I signed something when it was formed." "We will obtain the operating agreement. The transfer of interest you signed likely aimed to move your membership stake to him. The trust amendment would likely alter the distribution upon death, removing you as a primary beneficiary and potentially naming someone else." She looked at me. "He wasn't just hiding assets, Mrs. Evans. He was systematically stripping you of them, using your own signature to do it." Hearing it from her, with legal terminology, made it more real and yet more abstract. It was no longer a personal betrayal. It was a case. My case. What do? We move quickly. We have already taken step 1. You have counsel. Step 2. We establish the fraud. We will file an emergency motion for a temporary restraining order and a lice pendens. A lice pendens? A notice on the title of the property, alerting any potential buyer that the ownership is under legal dispute. It effectively freezes any attempt to sell or refinance. We will also seek a freeze on the assets of SE Holdings and the joint trust. This will lock everything in place while we litigate. She spoke with absolute certainty. Our argument is straightforward. You signed these documents under a material misrepresentation. You believed they were routine estate planning. He knew they were instruments of financial dispossession. Will it work? With the evidence we will gather, yes. The courts do not look kindly on this sort of interspousal deception. Our immediate goal is preservation of the status quo. Our ultimate goal is to have these documents declared null and void, and to secure for you an equitable and likely favorable settlement, given the bad faith involved. She handed me a document from a drawer. It was a retainer agreement. My fee structure is outlined there. I require a retainer. After that, we proceed. I did not hesitate. I had already moved funds from our joint checking to my personal savings account yesterday, a modest sum, but enough for this. I signed the agreement. The pen was a generic ballpoint. It felt more honest. "Now," she said, placing the signed document in a folder. "Your homework. Find that copy. Document everything. Be normal. Do not engage in argument. If he mentions the legal papers from yesterday, you are confused and concerned, but you trust him to handle it. You are passive. You are upset with my firm for causing trouble. Can you do that?" "I've been doing it for 2 days." I've been doing it for 2. For the first time, a hint of something resembling approval touched her features. Good. Send me photos of anything you find. I will have my paralegal start on the corporate searches and draft the motions. We will likely file by the end of the week. I stood. The weight that had been in my chest since Saturday morning was still there, but it had changed. It was no longer the crushing weight of shock. It was the solid, manageable weight of a task, a project with clear steps and a competent foreman. Thank you, Ms. Preston. Gail, she corrected. We'll be seeing a lot of each other. Remember, the key now is information and composure. You have the latter. Go and get the former. I left her office. The afternoon sun was bright on the pavement. I did not go home immediately. I walked to a small park by the river and sat on a bench. I watched the water move, steady and relentless. I had a lawyer. I had a plan. The law, that abstract system I had rarely needed, was now a tangible tool in my hands. Marcus had chosen his weapons: deception, pressure, fraud. I had chosen mine: patience, observation, and the precise, unassailable language of the courthouse. I took out my phone and sent a text to Nori. Meeting done. Gail is exactly as advertised. Game on. Her reply came seconds later. Knew it. Now go find the playbook. I put the phone away. I was ready. The hunt in my own home awaited, and for the first time I felt no fear of what I might find. I needed to find it. Every document was a piece of his strategy, and I needed to know it all if I was to dismantle it completely. I drove home, my mind already cataloging the likely hiding places in his study, the rhythm of his evening routine, the moment when I could safely search. The passive wife was going to work. The house was quiet when I returned. Marcus was not home yet. This was my window. I went directly to his study, a room I had entered less and less over the past year. It was meticulously organized, a stage for his professional persona. I started with the filing cabinet. The top drawer held household documents, appliance warranties, insurance policies, tax returns from previous years. I photographed the tabs and moved on. The second drawer was labeled Investments. Here, I found the original operating agreement for SE Holdings LLC. My name was listed as a 50% member. I photographed every page. Beneath it were quarterly statements. The balances were substantial. This was not dust. This was the core of our financial growth over the last 5 years. I took pictures, careful to keep the papers in their exact order. The safe was next. I knelt, spun the combination lock to our anniversary date, a number that now tasted like ash. The door swung open with a soft click. Inside were passports, birth certificates, the deed to the house, and a stack of bound documents. On top was a familiar cover letter from Bryant and Associates, reference CEV 4482. My hands were steady. I lifted the stack out and set it on the floor. This was the copy. I used my phone to capture every single page, from the cover letter to the final signature. The document was exactly as I remembered, but now I read the dense paragraphs with Gail's words in my mind. The quitclaim deed was for the property at our address. The transfer of interest for SE Holdings assigned my 50% membership to Marcus Evans as sole managing member. The trust amendment removed me as a beneficiary and named a successor trustee I did not recognize. The finality of it, the thoroughness, was breathtaking. I heard the garage door rumble open. I had minutes. I replaced the documents in the safe, closed it, and spun the dial. I was back in the kitchen, filling the kettle, when his key turned in the door. He entered, loosening his tie. Hey, anything happen today? I turned, leaning against the counter. Quiet. Did some planning for the Miller job. What about you? Any more word from those lawyers? I let a hint of annoyed concern color my voice. He waved a hand, dropping his briefcase by the door. It's procedural. Gail Preston is just trying to run up a bill. I spoke with Bryant. They're handling it. It'll go away. He came to the fridge and pulled out a beer. Don't worry about it. I just hate the stress, I said, turning back to the kettle. It feels so invasive. I know, but it's almost over. He took a long drink. His phone, the one I knew, buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it, typed a quick reply, and put it in his pocket. But then he did something I had never consciously noted before. His hand went to his left hip, where his suit jacket would normally hang, a habitual checking motion. He wasn't wearing the jacket now. I stored the observation. We ate dinner. He talked about a deal at work. I listened, nodded, asked appropriate questions. The performance was seamless. After dinner, he said he had to review some contracts and retreated to his study. I cleaned the kitchen, then went to the living room with a book. I heard the soft click of his study door locking. That was new. An hour later, he emerged, showered, and ready for bed. He was affable, relaxed. The man who believed he was on the cusp of victory. I went through my own nightly routine. When I was certain his breathing had shifted to the deep rhythm of sleep, I lay awake, mapping the house in my mind. The next morning, after he left, I went back to the study. The locked door was a simple interior lock, easily opened with a small screwdriver from the tool drawer. Inside, everything appeared normal, but the checking motion at his hip. I considered his habits. He changed out of his suits immediately upon coming home, hanging them in his walk-in closet before showering. I went to the master closet. His suits were arranged by color. I started with the ones he had worn most recently. I began a methodical search, patting down each jacket. In the breast pocket of a navy suit he'd worn 2 days ago, my fingers touched hard, thin plastic. I pulled out a second smartphone. It was a model I didn't recognize, sleek and black, with a passcode screen. This was the phone, the one for the other life, the one with Bryant and Associates, the one where he had said, "Once she signs, we're set for life." I did not try to guess the code. I placed it on the carpet and took several clear photographs of it from all angles, capturing the make and model. Then I slid it back into the exact pocket. I rearranged the suit to its original position. My next stop was the home office printer, a wireless unit that stored a memory of recent print jobs. I navigated the small screen to the job log. There, 2 days before he presented me with the documents, was a single entry. Print, CEV 4482_final PDF from the device named Marcus_phone_2. I photographed the printer screen. The evidence was no longer just a memory of words overheard. It was physical. A second phone, a printer log, a copy of the fraudulent documents in the safe. I compiled the photos into an email to Gail with concise notes on where each was taken. I pressed send. The digital whisper felt more powerful than any scream I could have uttered in that house. That afternoon, I needed air that wasn't filtered through deceit. I went to my garden, the side yard I had designed and planted myself. The early spring beds were a work in progress, the soil dark and damp. I knelt not to tend, but to simply be. I pressed my hands into the earth. It was cold, solid, real. This patch of ground was mine in a way the house no longer was. My labor was in every perennial division, every bulb I had planted years ago now pushing through the mulch. Here things grew according to clear rules: sun, water, nutrients. Betrayal was not a nutrient. It was a poison. I brushed the soil from my hands. The clarity I found was not peaceful, but it was clean. It was the clarity of a blueprint. The structure of my old life was condemned. I was the architect of the new one, and the first step was demolition. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A reply from Gail. Excellent. This provides a pattern. The second phone is key. Do not touch it again. We are drafting the motions. Continue routine. I stood, my knees stiff from the cold ground. The routine. I would continue it. I would make his coffee, listen to his stories, and lie in the bed next to him, all while the legal machinery Gail was building gained momentum in the background. The disconnect was total. It was the only thing keeping me whole. I went inside to start dinner, the scent of soil lingering under my nails, a reminder of something that was still truly mine. Nori's living room became our war room. The following day, I arrived with a flash drive containing all the photographs and a notebook. She had her laptop open and a fresh pot of strong black coffee brewing. We did not discuss feelings. We discussed data. Gail's paralegal has already pulled the corporate filings for SE Holdings from the state website, Nori said, turning her screen toward me. Look here. 2 weeks ago, an amendment was filed changing the management structure from member-managed to manager-managed. That paved the way for your transfer of interest to have him as the sole manager with complete control. I examined the document. The filing date was days after I'd overheard his call. So he was laying the groundwork, making it legally possible to squeeze me out. Precisely. And look at the registered agent. It's a service company, but the contact attorney is from Bryant and Associates. She took a sip of coffee. Now, we need a timeline, a chronological map of his actions. It will show premeditation. We started with a large sheet of drawing paper from my bag. I used them for garden sketches. We drew a line down the center. On the left, we listed dates and actions. On the right, we pinned corresponding evidence. We began months back. The first entry was January 15th. Marcus suggests simplifying finances, moving more assets into SE Holdings for growth. I had noted it in my personal calendar after the conversation. Evidence, my calendar entry. March 3rd, Marcus receives phone call, closes door, mentions Bryant to someone. Evidence, my memory, noted that night in a journal I kept sporadically. April 10th, overnight trip for Marcus, client bonding. Unusually vague. Evidence, credit card statement showing a hotel charge in the city, not a resort. Then the rapid sequence from the last 2 weeks. Day 1, overheard call. Day 2, documents presented and signed. Day 3, process server. Day 4, discovery of second phone and printer log. We need to trace the money, Nori said. The ultimate purpose of stripping you of assets is to move them. He's not doing this just to have them in his name. He's planning to liquidate or transfer. The joint accounts, I said. I've been monitoring them daily. No large movements yet, but he wouldn't use those. He'd use the business accounts. Which you don't have direct access to, Nori finished. She thought for a moment. But you have the statements from the safe. The most recent one is from last quarter. We need to see activity after that date. I had photographed the front of the statements, but the transaction details were on the following pages I hadn't seen. The safe only had the summary pages. The detailed logs would be online. And he would have the login, Nori said. But he may have written it down. People do, especially for an account they want to keep separate but still need to access. I considered his habits. He used a password manager on his main phone, but for the secondary accounts tied to his secret life, he might resort to a physical note. His study is clean. But his gym bag, he keeps a small notebook in there for workout routines. Sometimes he jots other things down. Would he keep it there? It's the one place I never go. He handles his own gym clothes. It's plausible. I returned home before Marcus. His black leather gym bag was in the mudroom closet. I found the notebook, a small sweat-stained moleskin. Flipping past pages of weight routines and mileage, I found what I was looking for on the last page, a list of acronyms and strings of characters. One read, C Capital, user, Mevins, 47, Blue Legacy, 2024. I photographed the page. I returned the notebook to its exact position, between a protein bar wrapper and a pair of compression socks. Back at Nori's, we didn't attempt to log in. Gail had warned against any action that could be construed as unauthorized access, but the credentials were another piece of evidence, showing his control of the account. We added it to the timeline. The next step was the public record. Nori, with her librarian's expertise, navigated the county clerk's online database. She searched for recent recordings under Marcus's name and the LLC's name. Look, she said, pointing to the screen. A document had been recorded just yesterday. A deed of trust on our home property, listing SE Holdings, LLC as the borrower. It was a lien, securing a loan. "He's taking a loan out against the house," I said, my voice flat, "using the LLC that he now controls as the borrower. He's leveraging the equity." "And once he has the cash, he can move it anywhere," Norrie concluded. "The lien is a matter of public record. Gail can use this to demonstrate active dissipation of marital assets. This is urgent." I emailed Gail the new findings, the timeline document, the photo of the password, and the screenshot of the recorded deed of trust. Her reply was swift. "This is critical. The lien proves imminent financial harm. We are accelerating the filing. Be ready." The paper trail was no longer just a history. It was a current map of an ongoing crime. That evening, Marcus was in a conspicuously good mood. He talked about market trends, about liquidity. He used the word legacy twice. I watched him, this man I had loved, now a subject of my clinical study. Every gesture, every chosen word fed into the column on the right side of our timeline. After he went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with the final piece of personal documentation. My own financial ledger, separate from his. I reviewed the balances of my quiet individual savings account, the one funded by my design work. It was modest, but it was mine. It was the seed money for the life that would come after. I added one more entry to the bottom of our timeline in my own handwriting. "Today, I am ready." I took a picture and sent it to Norrie. She sent back a single word, "Good." The architecture of his betrayal was fully exposed, drawn in ink on paper. My response was being drafted in legal briefs. The disconnect was complete. I was living in two parallel realities, and only one of them had a future. I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and walked through the dark, silent house. It already felt like a museum of a failed experiment. I was the curator, and soon I would be closing the exhibit for good. The morning after finalizing the timeline, I woke with a strange, detached calm. The machinery was in motion. Gail had confirmed the emergency motions would be filed the next day. My role, for now, was to maintain the facade and wait. But waiting passively felt like a vulnerability. I needed to reclaim a piece of myself outside of his house, outside of the plot. I told Marcus I had a site visit for a potential client across town. He barely looked up from his tablet, giving a distracted nod. The lie was effortless. I dressed with deliberate care in clothes I'd chosen for myself, not for his events. I drove into the city, not to a client, but to the art museum. I had not been in years. Marcus found it stuffy. I walked through the quiet, sunlit halls alone. I stopped before a large painting from the Hudson River School, a detailed landscape of a valley with a solitary, gnarled oak tree in the foreground. The tree was bent by prevailing winds, but its branches were thick, its roots undoubtedly deep. It was not a picture of pretty resilience. It was a record of endurance. I stood there for a long time. In the reflection on the glass, I saw my own face superimposed on the painted bark. The woman in the reflection was composed, her eyes watchful. She looked like someone who could withstand a storm. I bought a postcard of the painting in the gift shop, a small, tangible claim on something that spoke to me. From there, I went to a boutique I had often walked past but never entered. It was owned by a woman my age, her designs minimalist and structured. I tried on a suit, a jacket and trousers, and a deep charcoal wool. It fit as if it had been made for me. The silhouette was authoritative, clean. It was not a suit for a wife attending a charity gala. It was a suit for a woman going to her own lawyer's office or to a meeting where she would sign contracts for her own business. I bought it. The act felt more decisive than any signature I had yet forged. I ate lunch at the museum cafe, a simple salad, and watched people move through the space. The normalcy of it was a balm. I was not just the betrayed woman in the kitchen. I was a person who appreciated art, who enjoyed quiet meals, who could choose a suit for herself. This was the core he had tried to erase. It was still there, When I returned home, Marcus was already there, which was unusual for a weekday afternoon. He was in the living room, speaking loudly on his main phone. His feet were propped on the ottoman, his posture expansive. He saw me and waved, a magnanimous gesture. "Yes, absolutely," he said into the phone, his voice carrying. "The liquidity event is proceeding on schedule. Once the final ties are cut here, I'll be free to pursue the venture full-time. The legacy plan is intact." I placed my museum bag and the boutique garment bag on a chair, my movements slow and quiet. I pretended to fuss with the bag, giving him the audience his performance demanded. No complications," he continued, a laugh in his voice. "Everything is smoothed over, just dotting the I's. It's almost a shame, but you have to be ruthless in these transitions, right? Sentiment can't enter into it." I felt a cold pinpoint of focus. He was talking to whoever was on the other end of the "set for life" call. He felt safe, secure enough to be indiscreet in his own home because he believed the only person listening was his oblivious, defeated wife. "I'll have the capital moved by end of week. Then we can really celebrate. Looking at properties myself, something with a view." He listened, then chuckled. I know, but I've earned it. 20 years of playing a part is long enough." Playing a part. The words hung in the air between us. I turned and gave him a small, questioning smile, as if I'd only heard the tail end of a conversation about a business deal. He winked at me, a grotesque pantomime of conspiracy. He ended the call. "Big things coming, Serena," he said, standing up and stretching. "Big changes, you'll see." "That sounds exciting," I said, my voice lightly curious. "A new project?" "The best kind, a fresh start." He came over and peered at the garment bag. "Shopping? That's my girl. Nothing like a little retail therapy." "Just something for spring," I said, moving the bag away slightly. "Good, you deserve it." He said it the way one praises a child for a minor accomplishment. "Listen, I might have to take a quick trip later this week, just overnight. Sign some papers, shake some hands. You'll be okay here." "Of course," I said. "I have my own work to do." That's the spirit. He patted my shoulder and walked toward his study, already pulling out the second phone from his pocket. He was so confident he didn't even bother to hide it fully. I took my bags upstairs. I hung the suit in the very back of my closet behind my everyday clothes, a secret of my own. I placed the museum postcard on the mirror of my vanity, a small, silent declaration. That night, over dinner, his boastfulness continued. He talked in broad, vague terms about legacy and freedom and untying anchors. He was painting a picture of a future so bright he had to wear mental sunglasses. I nodded along, asking innocuous questions that fed his narrative. "It must be a relief to have all that legal stuff behind you," I ventured. "A huge relief," he said, spearing a piece of chicken. "A clean break from old obligations. It's like shedding dead weight. The system works if you know how to work it." The cruelty was so casual, so woven into his sense of triumph that it no longer even hurt. It was simply data. It confirmed the absolute rightness of what Gail was about to do. Later, as I prepared for bed, I looked at the postcard on my mirror. The gnarled oak tree. It had withstood storms by bending, not breaking. Its strength was in its deep-rooted stability, not in its showiness. I felt a similar stability settling within me. His careless words, his boasts, his plans for a view. They were all the wind. I was the tree. And my roots, fed by truth and fortified by a good lawyer, were now wrapped around the bedrock of the law. The calm I felt was not the calm before a storm. It was the calm within the storm's eye. The destructive winds were of his making, and they were swirling around him, not me. I turned off the light. The plan was set. His performance was nearing its final, arrogant act. Mine was a study in quiet readiness. I slept soundly, the postcard a dark rectangle on the mirror, a promise of endurance witnessed and chosen. The call from Gail came at 9:15 the next morning. Marcus had left an hour earlier, mentioning a series of meetings. I answered on the first ring. "It's done," Gail said, her voice crisp over the line. "The emergency motions have been filed with the court. A temporary restraining order freezing all assets of SE Holdings, LLC, and the joint trust. A lies pendens on the title to the house. And a motion to nullify the quitclaim and transfer documents due to fraud. He will be served at his office this afternoon. A process server will also come to the home address to serve him there, ensuring legal compliance." I absorbed the information. "How long until a hearing?" The judge granted an ex parte order for the freeze based on the evidence of imminent dissipation. A hearing for the preliminary injunction is set for next week. That is where we will present our full case. He will have his lawyer, likely Bryant, but they are on the back foot now. The lien he placed is now frozen. He cannot access those funds. "Thank you, Gail. Now, you should not be in the house when he is served there later. It is also advisable to secure your personal essential items. Do you have a place to go?" "Yes." "Good. Go there now. Do not engage if he contacts you. Direct him to me. This is the point of no return, Serena. You are protected by the court as of this moment." I ended the call. The plan was no longer a plan. It was a legal reality. I looked around the bedroom. The point of no return. I had already crossed it, but now it was marked in official court documents. I retrieved the large suitcase from the top of the closet and set it on the bed. I did not pack in a frenzy. I packed with deliberation. I started with practical things. A week's worth of clothing, my toiletries, my laptop and charger, the folder containing my personal financial records and client contracts. Then I moved to the irreplaceable. From my jewelry box, I took only the pieces that were mine before him. My grandmother's pearl necklace, the simple gold hoops my mother gave me for college graduation. I left the diamond tennis bracelet he'd bought for our last anniversary in its velvet box. From the closet, I took the new suit in its garment bag. I went to the linen closet in the hall and pulled out the quilt. It was not an heirloom of fine craftsmanship. It was a heavy patchwork thing made by my paternal grandmother from old dresses and work shirts. It was the weight of history, not the appearance. I folded it carefully, the familiar faded blues and grays soft under my fingers. This was the quilt I'd had on my bed as a girl, the one I'd taken to college. Marcus had never liked it, calling it rustic. It had been stored away for years. Now I placed it in a large canvas tote. My final stop was my home office. I gathered my professional portfolio, my tools, the tablet for designs, my measuring tools. These were the instruments of my independence. I loaded everything into the trunk of my car in 2 trips. The house felt no different, just slightly emptier in ways only I would notice. I did not leave a note. There was nothing to say that the law would not say more clearly. I drove to Nori's. She was waiting at the door, her expression somber but resolved. She helped me carry my bags into her spare room, a cozy space with bookshelves and a view of her back garden. We did not speak much. The weight of the action filled the space. "Gail called me," Nori said once the bags were inside. "She wanted me to know the timeline. Service at his office is scheduled for 1 p.m. I looked at the clock. It was 11. He'll call. He'll be furious. Let him. His fury is not your problem anymore. It's his lawyer's problem." She put a hand on my shoulder. "You did the hard part already. Now it's procedural." I nodded. The procedural part felt solid, manageable. I unpacked my clothes, hanging the suit in Nori's closet. I spread my grandmother's quilt over the bed. The room immediately felt like mine, a sanctuary built on truth and loyalty, not lies and leverage. At 12:45, my personal phone rang. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He called again and again. After the 3rd call, a text came through. "Serena, we need to talk. Something crazy is happening. Call me." I did not reply. I turned the phone to silent. I knew what was happening. The process server at his office would have handed him the thick packet of legal documents. He would have scanned them, seen Gail's name, the court caption, the words, temporary restraining order, and fraud. His carefully constructed world would have begun its rapid contraction. Nori made soup for lunch. We ate at her kitchen table. The normalcy of the act, steam rising from the bowls, the taste of herbs and chicken, was a powerful counterpoint to the chaos I knew was unfolding across town. My phone lit up with more missed calls. Then a call from a number I didn't recognize, likely Bryant. I ignored it. "The first wave is always the loudest," Nori observed, stirring her soup. "Then they regroup, then they either fight or fold. Gale thinks he'll fight at first. His type can't admit being outmaneuvered." "Let him fight," I said. "We have the ground." At 2:30, Gale sent a brief email. "Service confirmed at office and home. He is represented by Bryant. Expect aggressive posture. Remain in your secure location. We will respond to all communications through formal channels." It was done. The legal shield was up. My physical self was in a safe harbor. I had moved the pieces of my life that mattered. The rest, the furniture, the art, the dishes in the kitchen, were just objects in a contested asset pool. The emotional tether, already stretched thin, had been severed by a court filing. That evening, I sat on the bed in Nori's spare room, my grandmother's quilt across my lap. I ran my fingers over the uneven stitching, each knot a decision made by a woman who knew about making do, about creating warmth from scraps. I was not making do, I was making new. But the principle was the same. You work with the materials you have. I had truth, evidence, a sharp lawyer, and a loyal friend. It was more than enough to build a foundation. The point of no return was not a cliff edge. It was a threshold. I had walked through it, carrying what I needed. The door had closed behind me. The sounds from the other side, the calls, the rage, the frantic legal scrambling, were now distant noises, muffled by the solid walls of the law and my own resolve. I pulled the quilt closer. It was heavy and real and mine. The call came at 10 the next morning. I was at Nori's kitchen table reviewing notes for my meeting with Gale to prepare for the upcoming hearing. My personal phone, which had been silent since I'd muted it, buzzed with an unknown number. I knew it was him. "Serena." His voice was a strained attempt at calm. "You need to come home. We need to talk. This has gone far enough." "My lawyer advised me not to engage in direct discussions," I said, my tone even. "Your lawyer," he spat the word, "has launched a nuclear attack based on fantasies. You've frozen everything. I can't access my own business accounts. This is insanity. Come home now, or I swear I'll—" "You'll what, Marcus?" I interrupted, my voice still quiet. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. I ended the call. I looked at Nori. She raised an eyebrow. "Gale said not to engage." "I'm not engaging, I'm observing. The process server for the home delivery is scheduled for between 10:30 and 11. I want to be there when he arrives." A slow smile spread across Nori's face. "To witness the moment." "To witness the moment," I confirmed. I drove to the house. The spring morning was bright, the neighborhood impeccably quiet. I used my key and entered. The foyer felt like a set from a play that had closed. Marcus was in the living room, not in his study. He stood by the window, a glossy brochure in his hand. It was for luxury European sports cars. He turned as I entered, his face a mask of aggrieved fury. "What is the meaning of this, Serena?" He flung the brochure onto the coffee table. "A restraining order? Fraud? Have you lost your mind?" I set my purse down on the console table. I listened to my lawyer's advice. She reviewed the documents I signed. She found the situation concerning. Concerning? It's estate planning. You signed it. You agreed. His voice climbed. "I agreed because you told me it was a routine update. Gale Preston says it was a fraudulent transfer of marital assets. The court seems to agree, provisionally." I kept my gaze level. "We can discuss everything through our attorneys." "I don't want to discuss through attorneys. I want you to call that woman and tell her to withdraw this garbage." He took a step toward me, then stopped, realizing intimidation wouldn't work here. He forced a laugh, a hollow sound. "This is a misunderstanding. We can fix this. Together. Just call her." At that moment, 3 firm knocks echoed through the house. Solid, official. Marcus's head snapped toward the door. "Who is that?" I walked past him to the foyer. I could feel his eyes on my back. I opened the door. A man in a dark suit stood on the step holding a thick legal envelope. He was young, professional. "Good morning. I'm looking for Marcus Evans." "He's here," I said, and stepped aside. Marcus had come up behind me. He looked from the man to me, his confusion evident. "What is this? Another one?" "Mr. Evans," the man said, his voice polite and impersonal, "I have documents for you pertaining to case number 724CV55891. This constitutes legal service." He extended the envelope. Marcus did not take it. He stared at it as if it were a live snake. "I was already served. Yesterday, at my office. This is supplemental service at the residential address as required by the court for the motions pertaining to the real property located here. Please take the documents, sir." I watched Marcus's face. The angry flush drained, leaving a waxy pallor. His hand trembled slightly as he reached out and took the envelope. The paper crackled in his grip. "Have a good day," the process server said. He nodded to me, turned, and walked back to his sedan parked at the curb. I closed the door. The click was soft but final in the quiet foyer. Marcus tore open the envelope, his fingers fumbling. He pulled out the stack of papers, his eyes darting over the legalese. I saw him locate the key phrases: motion for preliminary injunction, Exhibit B, photograph of second phone, Exhibit C, printer log, Exhibit D, quitclaim deed. His head jerked up. His eyes, wide and bloodshot, locked onto mine. "You took pictures? You went through my things?" "I was documenting our assets," I said calmly, as any prudent person would when they discover their spouse has been lying to them. "You set me up." The words were a whisper of dawning horror. "You signed those papers knowing—" "I signed them knowing I would have my own lawyer review them. That's not a setup, Marcus. That's common sense. You just never expected me to have any." He leaned against the wall, the papers crumpling against his chest. The arrogant man with the car brochure was gone. In his place was a man watching the walls of his future collapse inward. He looked at me, truly looked, and for the first time he saw a stranger. He saw the strategist. "You can't do this," he said, but it lacked conviction. It was the last automatic protest of a defeated man. "The court is already doing it," I replied. I picked up my purse from the console. "I won't be staying. All communication should go through Gail Preston. I'd advise you to contact Bryant. You're going to need him." I walked past him, opened the door, and stepped back out into the sunlight. I did not look back. I got into my car and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw the house recede, its door still open, framing a shadowed figure holding a bundle of papers that contained the detailed map of his ruin. The knock had been delivered. The echo was just beginning. I did not drive directly back to Norrie's. I drove to a quiet parking lot by the river and sat for an hour. I watched the water flow, constant and indifferent. The confrontation had been brief, clinical. I felt no surge of victory, only a deep, settled certainty. The legal process would now grind forward, but the personal war was over. He knew I knew. The balance of power had permanently shifted. My phone buzzed with a text from Gail. Heard service was affected at residence. Bryant has contacted me requesting an urgent conversation. I have declined. All communication must be in writing now. Status quo holds. I replied, understood. As I put the car in gear, another call came through. Marcus. I sent it to voicemail. He called again and again. On the fourth attempt, I answered, but said nothing. Serena. His voice was ragged. "You're still at the house? Please, we need to talk. I'm here. Just come back." I considered. The running away was done. The final words needed to be said in the place where it began. "I'll be there in 15 minutes," I said, and ended the call. When I re-entered the kitchen, he was sitting at the breakfast table, the legal papers spread before him like a ruined map. The car brochure was gone. He looked up as I walked in. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. Why? The word was stripped bare. I remained standing, my purse still on my shoulder. "You know why? You said it yourself on the phone. Once she signs, we're set for life. I heard you, Marcus. I was in the kitchen refilling the coffee canister." He flinched as if struck. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "You thought I was upstairs. You were careless, or you were so confident in my blindness that it didn't matter." I took a step closer. The quitclaim deed, the transfer of my interest in SE Holdings, the trust amendment. You presented it as an estate planning update. That is the definition of fraudulent inducement. He found his voice, a thin, desperate thing. It was for us, for protection. I was going to reinvest, build something bigger. For whom? I interrupted, my voice still calm. "You were taking a loan against the house through the LLC you had just taken from me. You were talking about properties with a view. You told someone on the phone that 20 years of playing a part was long enough." I recited the facts as I had for the timeline. "You were not protecting us. You were dismantling us and packaging the pieces for your own use." He stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly. "You have no proof of any of that." "I have a recording of your boastful conversation yesterday in the living room. I have photos of the second phone you keep in your suit jacket. I have the printer log showing you printed the documents from that phone. I have the password from your gym notebook. I have the recorded lien from the county clerk." I listed them without emphasis. "Gail Preston has all of it. The court has seen enough to freeze everything. What proof do you imagine is missing?" He stared at me, his breath coming in short gasps. The rage was rising now, a last defense against the onslaught of truth. "You schemed against me. You plotted this. You're a cold, calculating—" "I am a woman who trusted her husband," I cut in, my tone finally sharpening, though not raising. "You mistook that trust for stupidity. You mistook my quiet for weakness. Your error was fundamental. I observed, I documented, and I sought expert counsel. Those are not the actions of a schemer. They are the actions of a person who has been betrayed and is intelligently defending herself." The rage broke. His shoulders slumped. The anger melted into a frantic, pleading energy. "Serena, please, I made a mistake. A huge, stupid mistake. I was scared about the future, about money. I panicked. We can fix this. We can tell the lawyer to stop. We can tear up these papers." He gestured wildly at the table. "We can go back to how it was." "There is no back," I said. "How it was is what led to this. You lying to me. You plotting against me. You seeing me as an obstacle to your legacy. That is the truth of how it was. I don't want it back." He moved around the table, hands outstretched, a supplicant. "I love you, I do. This was just business. It wasn't personal." The last pathetic lie. It was the most personal thing you could have done. You targeted my home, my financial security, my future. You used my trust as the weapon. That is as personal as it gets. He stopped, his hands falling to his sides. He had run out of scripts. The charming explainer, the angry victim, the penitent husband, none had worked. He was just a man in a sunlit kitchen, defeated by the sheer weight of his own actions. "What do you want?" he whispered. "I want you to leave," I said. "Tonight. Take what you need. The court will determine the division of assets, but you cannot live here with me. This is no longer your home." He looked around the kitchen, at the space we had designed. His gaze held a dawning realization of loss, not just of money, but of the life he had thrown away. "Where will I go?" "That is not my concern." I took my house key off my key ring and placed it on the counter. "I have a copy. You will leave your key when you go. I will be staying with Nori until the preliminary hearing. Do not contact me. Speak to Bryant. He speaks to Gail. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, through the foyer. I did not look back. I heard no sound behind me, no tears, no shouts, just a profound silence. I got into my car and drove to Nori's. This time, when I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw only the empty street. The door was closed. The figure inside was already a ghost in that house, a remnant of a story that was over. The reckoning was complete. The facts had been stated. The sentence, both legal and personal, had been delivered. All that remained was the future. 3 months later, I was in my garden in my house. The preliminary injunction had been made permanent. The fraudulent documents were nullified. The financial disentanglement was proceeding under Gail's meticulous guidance, with the frozen assets ensuring an equitable split. The divorce itself was a formality awaiting a judge's signature, which Gail informed me would happen next week. Marcus had contested nothing after the evidence was presented in court. He had settled. He was gone. The house was different now, lighter. His study was now my design studio, the filing cabinets replaced with plan chests holding landscape drawings. The kitchen was just a kitchen again, not a stage for betrayal. I knelt at the edge of a newly turned bed, a schematic for a community garden project spread on the grass beside me. The city had awarded me the contract. It was my largest project to date, a transformative space for a neighborhood that needed one. The plans detailed raised vegetable beds, a pollinator garden, a small orchard. It was a design for growth, for nourishment. I heard a car door shut, then another. I stood, brushing soil from my knees. Nori and Gail came around the side of the house, each carrying a small bag. Nori held a bakery box. Gail carried a bottle of sparkling cider. "We come bearing congratulations," Nori announced. "The final papers are drawn. Gail just told me." Gail offered a rare, full smile. "The judge signed the decree of dissolution this morning. It's finished. The house is yours, free and clear. Your share of the investment capital will be transferred next week. The lien has been removed. The matter is closed." I accepted the words with a nod. There was no surge of emotion, only a deep, solid sense of completion. "Thank you, Gail, for everything." "You did the work," she said. "I just navigated the system." We moved to the patio table. I brought out glasses. Gail opened the cider, and the soft pop echoed in the quiet backyard. Nori unveiled a small cake with a single flower piped in icing. "To new growth," Nori said, raising her glass. We touched glasses. The cider was crisp and sweet. I took a sip, then set the glass down. "It feels real now," I said. "It was always real from the moment you decided to act," Gail replied. "The law just needed to catch up." We talked then, not of the past, but of the present and future. Gail inquired about the community garden plans, her sharp eyes appreciating the organizational detail. Nori talked about a new historical society project. I told them about a potential client who wanted a native plant refuge. The late afternoon sun warmed the patio. The garden around us was vibrant, a mix of established perennials and the new plants I had added. It was not a perfect manicured showpiece. It was a living, evolving system. Some plants had thrived. Others I had moved to better locations. I had learned from each adjustment. After a while, Gail glanced at her watch. "I have another appointment, but I wanted to deliver the news in person." "Huh?" She stood, and I walked with her to the front drive. At her car, she turned. "You should know, he took a position overseas. He left last week. It was part of the settlement, a clean break." I felt nothing. No relief, no schadenfreude. It was simply a data point. "I see. You built a better outcome," she said. It was the closest she would come to personal commentary. She got in her car and drove away. I returned to the patio. Nori was gathering the plates. "She's right, you know," Nori said. "You built this. Not just the legal victory. This." She gestured to the house, the garden, the plans on the table. "I had help," I said. "You had resources. You used them intelligently. There's a difference." She finished packing the bakery box. Don't downplay it. You took a devastating blow and turned it into a blueprint. That's a particular kind of strength. We went inside. I showed her the final renderings for the community garden on my large monitor in the studio. She pointed to a corner of the plan. What's this here? A seating area? Yes. A place to sit and observe. A place to rest. She nodded approvingly. Essential. After Nori left, I walked back out into the garden alone. The evening air was cool. I looked at my home, its windows glowing warmly in the dusk. It was no longer a symbol of a shared lie. It was a structure that sheltered my true life. My business was growing. My friendships were solid. My peace was my own. The revenge was never an act of violence. It was an act of reclamation. I had reclaimed my money, my property, my security. But more importantly, I had reclaimed my narrative, my time, and my sense of self. He had tried to erase me from my own story. In response, I had not just written a new chapter. I had taken control of the whole publishing house. I went inside, locked the door, and turned off the patio lights. The house was quiet. It was a good quiet, the kind filled with potential, not with dread. I had plans to review, a garden to tend, a life to live. The past was settled. The future was a blank page, and I was finally, unequivocally, the author.